Hey there, Facebook family. How's everybody doing this Sunday? I'm trying to set my phone up in a way that I can read this post that I have here. Technical difficulties. I'm not out in my studio today, so it's a little bit different. See if I can tag some folks, see if they want to jump on. I tagged a couple people. I don't want to bother too many people. It's Sunday, and this isn't always a great time to do a live video, but I didn't want to do it too late because I have things that I have to get ready for the week today. So I've been doing this, my brain's not working today. I've been doing this, trying to do a live video for women every day. And today, I usually do it in the morning, but I wanted to do it tonight because I wanted people to be able to do their church services this morning. So today what I'm doing is a Bible study, and I think what I'm going to do is on Sunday nights and Sunday afternoon, late afternoon, whatever, I'm going to do a Bible study for women. And guys can jump on too. It's just I'm going to pull out characters of the Bible that are women, because I feel like, there's a lot of good stuff that women have done in the Bible, and beyond just Mary or the woman at the well, or, like those stories. There's a lot of Old Testament characters in the Bible of women that really go kind of unnoticed, and it's kind of a shame because I really like the Old Testament. I mean, the New Testament's great, and I love, it's all about the New Testament. It's all about Christ and redemption, but there's so much cool stuff in the Old Testament we don't really plug into. I'm not doing this right now, Raul. No. So today who we're talking about is Deborah, and Deborah is a prophetess, and she is in the Old Testament. So it's in the book of Judges. So the book of Judges is, it's right after, hey Stephanie, hey Angie, after Joshua. And basically this is a time in Israel when the people wanted judges to rule because, they kind of, let me read this to you here. It says, it says the period of the Israelite judges took place between the conquest of the Promised Land under Joshua and the rise of the monarchy with Saul and David. The events can be safely dated the end of 15th century. So basically, the people were in need of somebody to rule the land. So God appointed judges over Israel. And Deborah was one of the judges of Israel, and she was the only female judge that was a prophet, prophetess, prophet, judge, oracle, whatever you want to call her, in the Old Testament. Says clearly one of the Bible's most outstanding figures. She served ancient Israel as a prophet, judge, military leader, songwriter, and minstrel. So she had a lot of different roles we're going to talk about. She's introduced without fanfare. The Bible records no dissent or rebellion against her. The two chapters begin with Israel's disobedience, vividly describe a holy war and its participants, and end with a victorious result. The land had rest for 40 years. So kind of setting up the scene, what's going on is there's a group called the Canaanites that are pretty much taking advantage of Israel, and they're they're trying to steal their food stocks. They're kind of taking advantage of the people. They're just, really making it a hard time for Israel. So Deborah comes along, and she's a prophetess, she's a judge. So basically what she does is she sits underneath, it's called the palm tree of Deborah, and basically it's like a place where she sits, and people come to her and ask her for wisdom, and they ask her for help, and because she has wisdom from God. And we don't know a lot about her background because it doesn't really say, but we know that she's trusted and she's well respected by men and by women in Israel at that time. Okay. So I'm just going to read the passage, and then we're going to kind of go through it. So Deborah and Barak, the Israelites, again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud had died. So the Lord sold them to King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Hashereth of the nations. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord because Jabin had 900 iron chariots, and he harshly oppressed them 20 years. So the Canaanites were basically oppressing the Israelites for 20 years. And the reason they bring up the chariots is because the Israelites did not have chariots. All of their armies were, at that period of time, were on foot. So you can imagine what it's like. If somebody's got chariots and horses, they're going to be able to do a lot more damage than somebody that's on foot. Deborah, a prophetess and the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. And what it means by judging, it doesn't mean she was judging like you're bad and you're getting judged. She was providing wisdom and guidance and support and military, what's the word I'm looking for? Military, I can't think of the word. Military stuff. She was providing military guidance and things like that. It says she would sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramoth and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went to her to settle disputes. She summoned Barak, son of Abanon, from Kadesh, and I can't pronounce these words, Naphtali, and said to him, "Hasn't the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go deploy the troops on Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men from the Naphtalites and the Zebulites? Then I will lure Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, his chariots and his infantry, at the Wadi Kashan to fight against you, and I will hand him over to you." Strategy. Thank you, Stephanie. It was on the tip of my tongue. Strategy. So basically, Deborah's gotten a word from God that, okay, it's time. Like, Sisera is the commander of the Canaanite army, and he's just being awful. He's being horrible. So, she summons Barak, who's a military leader, to say, okay, it's time. We can take your 10,000 of your men and lure them into the Wadi Kashan. So the Wadi Kashan, if you don't know what it is, there's different river basins and valleys in Israel. And the Wadi Kashan was one of those places that was just kind of like a valley. So there's lots of mountains around, and there was this like really deep valley. Okay, so that's important to remember, and also remember the chariots. Okay, so Barak said to her, "Your shoes untied." I don't have my shoes on, Charlie. Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." So we don't really know what that's about, but apparently he wants her with him. And then she says, "I will gladly go with you," she said, "but you will receive no honor on the road you are about to take, because the Lord will sell Sisera, who is the commander of the Canaanite army, to a woman." So Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. All right. So she wasn't going to go. It was up to him to kind of do this on his own. And she's like, whatever, I'll just go with you. I don't know what she was thinking. Was she thinking he was a big baby? I don't know. Now Heber and the Kenite had moved away from the Kenites, and the sons of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, and pitched his tent before the oak tree, which was near Kadesh. It was reported to Sisera, who was the Canaanite army commander, that Barak had gone up to Mount Tabor. So here's Mount Tabor up here, and the Kishon Valley is down here, okay? So here they are up the top of the mountain. Sisera summoned all his 900 iron chariots and all troops who were with him from the Harosheth to the nations of the Wadi Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has handed Sisera over to you. Hasn't the Lord gone before you?" So Barak came down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. Okay, so here's the valley, and here comes the Canaanites in the valley, and then here's Barak and Deborah up here, and then she says, "Go," and then here we go, all right? but it gets better. It gets better. So then it says, the Lord threw Sisera, all his charioteers, and all his army into panic before Barak's assault. We don't know what that is, but I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute. Sisera left his chariot and fled on foot. So basically he got out of his chariot and left on foot. Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as the Harosheth of the nations, and the whole army of Sisera fell by the sword. Not a single man was left. So that's a lot of people. I think it was like 20,000 or something. It's a lot of people. Meanwhile, Sisera had fled on foot to the tent of Jael. Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite. Okay, so Jael was not an Israelite, but her husband was like related to Moses, so that kind of made her an honorary Israelite. So keep that in mind. That's who Jael is. Meanwhile, Sisera had fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there were peace between King Jabin of Hazor and the family of Heber the Kenite. So Sisera went there because it was kind of like they were neutral territory. Heber was like, family of Israelite, but he was also at peace with King Jabin. So it says, Jael went out to greet Sisera and said to him, "Come in, my lord, come in with me. Don't be afraid." So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. He said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." She opened a container of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him again. Then he said to her, "Stand at the entrance to the tent. If a man comes and asks you, 'Is there a man here?' say no." While he was sleeping from exhaustion, Heber's wife Jael took a tent peg, grabbed a hammer, and went silently to Sisera. She hammered the peg into his temple and drove it into the ground, and he died. And he died. It's not funny, but it's just, the Bible's so like literal sometimes. When Barak arrived in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to greet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man you are looking for." So he went in with her, and there was Sisera lying dead with a tent peg through his temple. That day God subdued King Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. The power of the Israelites continued to increase against King Jabin of the Canaan until they destroyed him. All right, so we know that they were on the mountain and then they were in the valley, right? So the Israelites were on the mountain, the Canaanites were in the valley. We know that they came down, and somehow it says that the Lord threw Sisera and all his charioteers into a panic before Barak's assault. All right. So later on in the chapter, and what we don't really know, unless you really study this, and I studied this when I went to Bible college, is that the Wadi Kishon and actually when it rains, it floods. So as I dug into this, there was actually a complete like downpour that happened, right? And it happened so quickly that the valley flooded, and then the valley got so muddy that when the chariots came in, they got stuck before they even came down to attack them. So that's what startled them before it happened, right? So basically they got stuck in the mud. The Israelites came down, they killed them all, and then Sisera ran running off to, save himself, thinking he was going to get off scot-free, but then Jael killed him, fulfilling what Deborah said, but Sisera will be delivered into the hands of a woman. So he didn't get the victory because he asked Deborah to go with him instead of just going when she told him to go by himself. He didn't believe enough in himself to go by himself. He had her. I don't know what all the reasonings are. So how did Deborah know this? How did Deborah know that it was going to rain? How did she know that they would get their, chariot stuck in the mud? Like, did she have some kind of did God tell her audibly that, it was going to rain, they're going to get stuck in the mud? Maybe. But what I tend to think more is that Deborah, because she was wise, she ruled as a judge for 60 years. She knew that place like the back of her hand. She knew the patterns of weather. She knew the patterns of the land. She knew the geography. She knew it very well. And I think that more than anything is how she knew that was going to happen. The other part of it is, delivering with Jael. We don't know a lot about Jael either, just a very little bit. But, it's kind of one of these stories that unlikely people are the ones that are going to, take over and kill the enemy. It's not always the big bad dudes with with the swords and the shields and all that. Sometimes it's these little tent maids that have little tent stakes that are very deadly, right? So what can we learn about this as women? Yesterday I talked about boundaries, and the day before that I talked about knowing yourself and trusting yourself. I really believe that Deborah had to really know herself and really trust her own judgment in order to make this call. And that means that she had to be confident. Now, is all of her confidence in herself? No. Our confidence and our wisdom comes from being humble and curious and learning and listening, right? And all of her 60 years that she was under that palm tree and she was listening to people and giving them wisdom and guidance and hearing them and understanding the lay of the land and understanding how all of the things, had to come into play for that battle to take place. She had to have confidence, and she got the confidence because she had to walk in it, and had she not trusted herself and known herself, she would have second-guessed herself just like Barak did. And I think that's probably one of the big points in here is that Barak second-guessed himself, but she didn't. Say what you want to say about women in the church. I get so much flack when I do something like this, about 2 Timothy or whatever the verse says that, women shouldn't lead the church. And she's not leading a church, she's leading a battle, but what's the difference? I mean, women can be leaders. He didn't want to step up and be a leader, so she stepped up to be the leader. And sometimes, ladies, we do have to step up and lead. It doesn't mean we rule over men. It doesn't mean, we're trying to take anything away from them, but sometimes we have to step up and lead, and we have to be confident in that calling that we have to lead. And maybe your calling is just to, lead your children or lead in your place of employment or be the leader of your own life, But had Deborah not had that confidence and the experience, then she might not have, this probably never would have happened. Now, if you keep reading Judges chapter 5, that gives into all this song that she did, and it really goes into more about the battle and kind of what happened and everything. So it's kind of a neat story, and I was going to read you something off of here, just as a little background. Let's see. So the chapter 5 I was talking about, it's called Deborah's Song. It says, the poetry in chapter 5, the Song of Deborah, smacks of realism and emphasizes the role of women. The ballad tells of a gripping story ringing with eyewitness details. Like the Book of Lamentations and the Gospel of Mark, it leaves a reader feeling breathless. One easily imagines Deborah strumming and beckoning Barak to walk and sing with her among their victorious countrymen. Her leadership style favors a team approach. She willingly recognizes those who joined and served. She not only praises others, but also thereby encourages them to ongoing service and development as leaders. So, she was trying to encourage Barak to step up and lead. But I think he had some fear. The scripture doesn't really say, and I'd have to really study on that. But I think he probably had some fear, and maybe because she was so wise, she trusted him more. He trusted her more. So, whenever you're asked to be in a place of wisdom and discernment, and you have people coming to you, that's an honor. It's a real honor for me, being a counselor and being in ministry for years, it's a real honor when people ask me certain things. But I don't always claim that I have the answer. I always try to say, well, this is what scripture says, and this is what was going on in culture, and what do you think? I think we have to be curious, and I think that's the way Deborah probably was with the people that came underneath of her, is, she asked them questions about, what do you think is good for you? She was teaching them how to have boundaries and how to stand up for themselves. That's creating a team. the way that you create a cult is you tell everybody what to do and how to do it. And I don't see that here. I see she was welcoming Barak an opportunity to really get some glory and some confidence, and he didn't want to do that, right? But, so she went with him to try to help him, like, build his confidence a little bit, but he didn't end up getting the glory, but we have to be able to just, as women, we have to be able to be curious, ask questions in leadership, and not always have the answer. And also encourage other people to try to have their own answers for themselves. She didn't shame Barak for his choice, but she just told him that, there's a consequence for it, I just really like this story because she's the only judge in Israel, right? And she's, or the only woman judge in Israel. So it's just super cool to me that she knew the lay of the land. She knew the patterns of the weather. She knew what was going to happen. And that's because of her wisdom. And she was committed. She was committed to her group of people. She was committed to her tribe. And I think so often as women, I don't know what it is with women. And maybe it's just me. I don't know. I just feel like so many groups of women, there's these cliques, but there's not a tribe. There's not like this understanding, like, I got your back, and it's like cliques, and, it's like gossipy stuff, and Deborah really was good at taking care of her tribe of people, It says it takes a village to raise a child, and no, that wasn't Hillary Clinton that first said that. It was an African proverb, and it's true. When everybody's working together, there's so much good that can be done, and I imagine that's how she was with her people, and that's why they trusted her, and that's why she sat as a judge for so long, because she knew herself, she trusted herself, she trusted her judgment, and she was first and foremost, she really heard from God in her spirit, and we have to trust that. We have to trust that gut. We have to trust that intuition more often. So that's just a little study on Deborah. I'm gonna do a little study on women. I think, on Sunday evenings. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I was going to do like Bad Girls of the Bible or something, but I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm just kind of winging it. Hope you guys have a good night. Hope you got something out of that. I'm going to do a live in the morning, another live for women. I'm not exactly sure what the topic's going to be yet, but just something I'm challenging myself to do in this time of quarantine and change and all the things that we're all experiencing. So hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you later. Bye.